Okay, so welcome to Too Much Tech Cooperation with Removing and Reducing Technology, something I think we can all relate to these days. There's a lot of parents out there who have kiddos that are on a lot of technology right now for a variety of reasons. This is being presented tonight by Marilyn and myself. I'm Jen Nieradka, this is Marilyn Green, and we are members of the Ottawa Catholic School Board's Behaviour Team, which is a sub-team of the Special Education and Student Services Department. So we're happy to see you here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll start with our board respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territory of the Algonquin peoples, on whose territory we pray, learn, play, and work. We're just frozen, so we're just gonna hold on a second. There we go. So we created this presentation today, Too Much Tech, as a second part to our ABA in Your Home webinar series. So we did ask as a prerequisite to tonight's webinar that you watch that video series, which is about an hour. I think it's just under an hour. And there is a corresponding ABA in Your Home worksheet that goes with it that allows you to fill out information about your own specific child as you work through the webinar series. If you haven't done that, don't worry, this isn't present your homework or anything like that. So those are additional resources available to you, and we will be jumping into that content. That was sort of something that we provided to you prior to tonight's webinar. Now, I'll quickly review with you today's topics. Marilyn is going to bring you through number 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to start with talking about types of screen time. Then we're going to talk about some quick and easy ways that you can turn recreational screen time into quality screen time and or other activities. And she's going to outline for you sort of what not to do when trying to reduce and remove technology, because some of the things that people try might actually evoke some problem behavior, whining, complaining, crying, tantruming, even aggression with some kids. And so we have some sort of what not to do's. And then we're going to walk you through number 4, really outlines all of the main key components of our ABA in Your Home webinar series with the corresponding worksheet. And we have 3 case studies that we're going to present to you tonight that really walk you through if we had a hypothetical student, here's all the questions we'd be asking and the plans that we would be making in order to reduce and remove technology collaboratively with that student.
Okay, so what we wanted to really outline today was quality screen time versus recreational screen time. So of course we all have our recreational screen time, which would be more of YouTube, watching a movie, possibly gaming on an Xbox or on a TV, social media, so Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I know Facebook's maybe old now. So basically what we're looking at for the recreational is not necessarily educational, video gaming, and social media. So that's where we're really going to put our focus on reducing that and maybe possibly changing it to some more quality screen time. So during the pandemic, of course, we all know that we've all been on screen time probably more than we normally would before, because that's now our social time. It's often our educational time. We're doing online classes, whether it be for fun or whether it be part of our education. This is also sometimes where we're getting our physical activity. So maybe we're taking a dance class or yoga. And we're having our Zoom conversation with our friends and families. A lot of our children are doing things like Prodigy or Raz Kids. We're reading books online. So these are the things that we really still value in screen time. And although it may be part of actual screen time, it's really needed right now because we don't have a lot of other options sometimes. So we're really going to focus today on how we can maybe reduce that recreational and either reduce it in general or convert it to more of a quality screen time. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is what this recreational screen time could look like. So quality screen time ideas could be, we use kind of Minecraft as an example. A lot of our kiddos right now are really into Minecraft, and I know Jen had some great ideas around this. So there are things like Minecraft clubs online where you can actually have some social time while doing Minecraft. Minecraft includes a lot of things like math, reading, and I know some things like OutSchool have some really good programs that focus around Minecraft but actually teach a lot of educational skills as well. You could FaceTime with grandma and show her your amazing, cool Minecraft world, right? And this doesn't necessarily obviously have to be Minecraft. We just kind of chose one thing and then decided to kind of work around it. So you could also have Minecraft family night on the TV. So hook up your computer to the TV, everyone sit together, and let's tour this amazing Minecraft world that you've made. So that's how we can try to turn some of that recreational time into some really cool quality ideas. And then what we want to do is we want to build on the fact that your child is really in love with Minecraft right now. And what can we do that is Minecraft related that we're starting to kind of expand those different activities into things that aren't necessarily technology. So we could do Minecraft Lego, there's crafts, there's all these amazing strategy books that they go through how to create better lands and more advanced skills in Minecraft. There's Minecraft trivia, and we've even seen people baking with different things, right? So this is how we would start, by getting involved in their online and their tech time, and then really bringing in all those other activities that are involved in that Minecraft or whatever that activity might be that they're doing online, and expanding it into different activities. So when you see our three different cases today, what you're really going to see is how we tried to build some of these different strategies into the three profiles that we have. Okay, so what we want to start with before we go into what to do is what we would suggest that you don't do to start out. So what we suggest is you don't limit all of their preferred access to technology right now. Don't pull the plug. That's not where we're at right now. We're not turning off Wi-Fi access entirely. We're not giving away, throwing out technology, or threatening to remove it as a punishment. The reason that we don't want to go here right now is, although we may be frustrated, or although we might feel like we've had too much tech and we have all been at that point, is what we don't want to do is you to leave here and accidentally cause some problem behavior that wasn't there before. So what we're really going to do tonight is we're going to talk to you about how to change these behaviors without actually just reducing it or pulling the plug entirely, because that's what's really going to cause that problem behavior without what we call a replacement. So what we need is a replacement skill for that technology. So we're going to go through these case studies. Hopefully what you will see is some attributes of your child or yourself that are in each of these case studies that you can pull from, and then we can talk about your cases a little bit more individually after. And off to Jen for a bit.
Thank you, Marilyn. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through three case studies. First, I'm going to bring you through Declan. So meet Declan. He's 5 years old and he is an iPad enthusiast. So what we did when we created these three profiles is we thought of some common profiles that we see and we hear about in terms of the amount of time kids are spending on their technology devices, but also we aligned it with sort of hopefully something that could speak to a variety of different profiles of children. So hopefully anyone watching this can relate elements of their child to elements of these children. So you'll see as we go through Declan, for example, that each slide that we present on Declan will have a little star in the corner that will tell you what video that aligns with. So we're going to go through, we're going to answer the questions as we go. Okay, so the first video in the ABA in Your Home series was related to holding the key. So we're going to specifically answer the questions that were on there as they relate to Declan. So the question on the worksheet was to talk about their other favorites. Okay, so Declan really likes Minecraft, Lego, he likes riding his scooter, he likes Pokemon and robots and Fudgios, okay? So it's good. We started to compile a list of Declan's other preferred items. So that's really our first step. Next, we're going to talk about how can we best withhold the iPad to build the most success possible with Declan. So what we're going to do here is ensure that you're always the one providing the iPad whenever Declan requests it, so that it's not free access. What I mean by that is if Declan wakes up in the morning, and remember he's a 5-year-old little kiddo, and he just has the iPad on his nightstand, or he goes into the living room and he can get the iPad off the charger, then it's going to be very easy for Declan to just have free access. So the first thing we kind of want to do is withhold the iPad, not because we're going to say no, but because we simply want to be the giver of good things. So Sarah Prince, one of our BCBAs, talked a lot about this in the first video, being the giver of good things. So if I'm the one providing it to you, good morning, Declan, here's your iPad, or oh, you've had breakfast, here's your iPad, at all the normal times during the day that he would otherwise be going and grabbing it off a shelf, then I'm already positioning myself with what we call a little bit of instructional control. So I'm not saying no, I'm going to be saying yes, but I am going to be the one providing the iPad to Declan. So it might seem like a very small step, but it's very, very important when it comes to building some instructional control as Declan's mom or dad, being the one to be the giver of that good thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is reducing adult expectations. So currently he's on 5 hours a day. And you'll see that all 3 of these case studies have different goals based on what the actual issue is. So the issue here with Declan is that he's having some significant challenging behavior around having to give up the iPad. So while the overall goal is how can we reduce the number of hours per day that he is using the iPad, the much more specific goal here is how can I remove the iPad from Declan without challenging behavior? So that I want to reduce the adult expectations of being able to do that every single time, 15 times a day. What I want to start to say is maybe could I start with asking him to remove it 2 times during that 5 hours, and really building what we call that trust. So if a child or a student is having a big reaction to having to give something up, it's usually related to not trusting or understanding when they're going to give it back. So in their learning history, when I give it up, I don't see it again, at least not for a while, or I don't know when I'm getting it back. So that's one of the sort of more specific goals that we're going to want to work on with Declan. Another question on the ABA in your home worksheet from video number 1 was building in preferences throughout the day. So we already know some other things that Declan knows, but remember the first thing is we're going to make sure the parents are the one giving him his highest preferred activity, which is the iPad, and then building in times during the day for other favorites. Oftentimes what we do with our kiddos is they have free access to iPad, but they also have free access to all of their other preferences. Whereas if we specifically build in times throughout the day where they can have access to those things and enjoy those things, it tends to go a little bit better. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about scheduling for success. So the next video was video number 2 in our ABA in your home series. And this one was done by Marilyn and myself, and we called it Pick What Fits. So this is really building yourself up toward a very specific goal. So the worksheet asks you what's going well. So let's pretend Declan here, he lives next to his best friend and they love to play scooters together. So maybe he's able to get out and do some physically distanced play with his best friend next door. That's going really well. Great. We want to celebrate that, and we want to make sure that that continues. What isn't going really well is that Declan's with his grandparents during the day when parents are working from home, and he can get aggressive when asked to give up the iPad. So given what we know about Declan so far, we're going to pick a goal as a family that Declan will give parents and grandparents the iPad when they ask without challenging behavior. So remember what Marilyn talked about. We're not just going to teach him by ripping it out of his hands and having to deal with the backlash. We want to teach Declan how to do this in a very systematic, slow way where we build in a lot of reinforcement. And really what we're doing here is we're teaching Declan a skill. Right now he has the skill deficit of giving up the iPad when asked, and that's a specific skill that we want to teach him how to cooperate with. So for Declan, the overall goal is removal of the iPad. Next, we talk about scheduling for success. So video number 3 was done by Becky Carter. And these are the main questions that we pulled from that video. The first one is, what areas of daily schedule are working well? So Declan will use the iPad when parents or grandparents are doing schoolwork with the other siblings. So that's actually going well for them. That's working in their favor, that he can be occupied on the iPad for longer periods of time when they don't otherwise have time to devote to him. So the next question is, how can we build in more structure and consistency into our daily family routine? So one thing we can do is daily we can schedule a Lego playdate with siblings or a neighbor once a day, so that it's something else that's a highly preferred activity. And this actually blends more than one highly preferred activity, because we know his best friend lives next door and he really likes Lego. And we can build in outdoor scooter ride. Maybe we can do that twice per day. And we can really just build in some more structure throughout his day. We can also say, okay, let's play Pokemon with Grandpa. We know, again, this is another highly preferred activity for him. So really, these activities, these answers for Declan, there's a ton of different things based on his interest that we can build throughout his day. So hopefully you at home, when you're working through the ABA in your home worksheet, you can think of and find sometimes what makes sense for us, what can we work with as a family. And if grandparents are at home with Declan, then it makes sense, for example, to play Pokemon with Grandpa. So how can I communicate with the family and child schedule with my child? So what we're going to do for Declan, based on his age and his developmental level, so he's 5 years old, we're going to construct a visual schedule together. So there's pictures on the right-hand side of your screen that show you the different things that we can include. And for this age range, I would say it's very good to put in their pictures in addition to the words, so that Declan can understand the pictures if he's not yet reading. And then we're also going to create a choice board for Declan, where he can choose 2 preferred activities that he can access before he accesses his iPad. And this is very likely going to work with Declan if all of the options on the choice board are in fact highly preferred alternatives. Okay. So next with Declan, we're going to talk about video number 4. So that was setting the stage for success. So Mark and Michael on our behavior team brought you through that video in the ABA in Your Home series. And some of the questions that came up are here. What skills does my child have now that might help us build toward the goal? So he has independent play skills and he has great social skills with his peer. So we want to make sure we're building on that. So when we're removing the iPad, it's easier to remove a highly preferred item from any of us if it's removal because we're going to another highly preferred activity. Okay, so think about yourself and the things that you love to do. You would be sad to see them have to end, but not as sad if you know you're going to something else that's very highly preferred. So what baby steps might be next that we can focus on together as a family? The answer here is Declan will give up the iPad for 30 seconds without problem behavior, and the iPad will be returned to him. We're going to talk more about this when we do the summary of Declan, but basically what we do in applied behavior analysis is we break big goals. We want to be able to take the iPad away and say, you're all done for the day, buddy. But we're not there yet. So the first baby step is to be able to take his iPad away, and we're actually going to say this to Declan. Hey, sweetie, today, for 2 different times, mommy's going to take the iPad from you. And if you're nice and calm, I'm going to give it right back. And it's only going to be 1 second. Let me practice with you. And you would take the iPad and say, I like the way you stayed calm, and give it right back to him. Okay, I do this with my own kids because I want to maintain that instructional control. And I want to maintain that trust that when I come close to you and I take your highly valuable stuff, you don't need to panic, because most often I give it right back very quickly. And what this will do is will help quiet Declan's very reactive response to having his highly preferred iPad taken away. Okay, so kiddos with that learning history, like you take my stuff, like I said, it's usually because they don't know when they're getting it back, or they know they're not getting it back anytime soon. So we want to build in those sort of learning trials with Declan, that sometimes I take your stuff and I give it back very quickly. So we're starting with 30 seconds here, but this is such an individualized goal. Some kids, I literally start with 1 second, okay? And then we build up to 2 seconds and 5 seconds and 10 seconds. But we're going to pretend that 30 seconds is Declan's sort of baseline time that he can stay calm for about 30 seconds before it's given back to him. And implementing this type of procedure one small step at a time really allows for great success for Declan, because he learns very quickly, wow, every time mom or dad come over, or grandma and grandpa come over, they're telling me ahead of time, I'm going to take the iPad, but don't worry, I'm going to give it right back. And I would recommend doing this kind of procedure when there's a natural break in the video that he's watching or the game that he's playing, as opposed to right in the middle of the great, awesome video that's about to get even better. That's not a great time to practice a trial. But maybe when he's like, hey mom, the video's closed, or makes a natural comment, hey bud, great, things are telling me, hey listen, we're gonna practice, wow, you did great, and give it right back. So that's kind of the very first step of this type of teaching procedure. Next, we're going to take a look at video number 5, which was the last video in our ABA in Your Home series. And we called that one Putting It All Together. So this one was with Robin Bertrand, and she gave some examples in that video that really kind of tied everything up. So this is what we're going to do now. So Declan's goal is he'll give parents and grandparents the iPad when they ask, without any challenging behavior. So the baby step to start is we're going to prevent free access to the iPad by always being the one to give it to him, so that when he thinks about the iPad in relation to his parents and grandparents, he's thinking that they're givers as opposed to takers. And that's going to help quiet those immediate reactive behaviors that he's having when the iPad is removed. We're going to explain to Declan that we're going to practice giving up the iPad, and when he's calm, we can have it right back. Declan will give up the iPad for 30 seconds without problem behavior, and we're going to, again, return that iPad to him. But remember, this is a baby step. In an ABA, we're always moving that train along to the bigger goal. So every time there's 5 days straight where you've had success, there's been no challenging behavior, Declan's allowing me to take it a couple of times a day and give it right back in the morning and after his meals, we're giving him access to the iPad. We're slowly going to build up that time every 5 days. So 5 days of success. Okay, now we're going to try a minute. Okay, and so when we're going to try a minute, then we're going to go to 2 minutes and 3 minutes. And you might be thinking, well, Jen, isn't the whole big picture goal to reduce his overall time on the iPad? Because it's 5 hours a day and I don't want him on it 5 hours a day. My answer to you is yes. So once there's 2 minutes, 3 minutes in between, you might start doing something like this. Oh, I'm going to take the iPad. Oh, Declan, it looks like it might need a charge. Why don't you go grab the charger and come on back? We'll plug it back in and I'll give it back to you. And that way, what we're doing with our instructional control is we're teaching Declan that during those breaks, he can go and do something for us that's of benefit to him, so that when he comes back, he's all the more happy to plug it in, and we can eventually say, okay, it's 5 minutes, just enough time for you to help me load the dishwasher. But please don't try that right away. We want to really build up that kind of instructional control with Declan, where he's cooperative and he's excited. He knows you taking the iPad away is not the end of the world. It does not need to evoke challenging behavior, because if he asks for it back, he will get it back very, very quickly when he's reached his time frame. And so the important things to remind you of was what we talked about with the schedule. So we're going to have a choice board for Declan where he can pick any 2 preferred activities before he can access the iPad. So that's something you can say it's after lunchtime and grandma's available. You can show him the choice board and you can say, okay, did you want to play Pokemon with me? Or did you want to go for a scooter ride? Or some of the other things that are on your choice board. Let's pick 2 and then you get the iPad. So that he can better predict when he's going to get that high preferred iPad back in his possession. So the visual schedule for the day might look like something like this. He's going to wake up, and remember, you might have picture icons to go with this. Get dressed, outdoor scooter play with the neighbor, independent choice board activity, followed by iPad time. So when Declan looks at this, waking up was pretty effortless, right? Didn't have to do much. He got dressed, which again, you might need to help him with that. And then it's a fun scooter ride, fun independent choice activities, and fun iPad. So this kind of brings back to what Sarah Prince talked about in the first video, which was we want to make sure that it's good things, good things, good things, good things, and then maybe throw one thing in there that's maybe a bit harder for our kiddo. So overall, that's Declan in a nutshell, his main goal being that we need to remove that iPad. The more we build in choices and the more we build in a visual schedule for Declan, that naturally you might find within a few weeks of doing these types of strategies, you might find that baseline of 5 hours on the iPad starts to go down naturally, which is really what we want. And it didn't ever involve us saying, I'm so sick of fighting about the iPad, I've thrown it in the garbage, or something really drastic that sometimes we all feel like we want to do. So this is a very systematic way to reduce that. If you have specific questions about Declan, I invite you to write them in the chat box if you're live with us. Otherwise, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Marilyn?
I'm not seeing anything here, so I'm going to go ahead and feel free to continue to ask the questions if something comes up. All right, so I'm going to talk about Jamal, who's 9 years old, and he's our YouTube fan. So what we're going to do is go through the same strategy or the same process that we went through with Declan, but now we're going to do the same with Jamal. So for Jamal, if we were talking to him, he would tell us that he loves socializing with his friends. He loves collecting rocks when he's out on his walks. He loves to play soccer, and he's very good at it. And he also told us that he really loves sour candies. So if you were doing the video 1, these are some things that would have come up for Jamal as his favorites. If you were talking about the next question, which asks, how would you withhold those reinforcers? So what you would want to do for that iPad that he loves is ensure that you're the one who gives it to him. So just as Jen was saying, we want to be the giver of the good things. So you want to make sure that when it's iPad time, we're saying, you know what, here, buddy, you can use your iPad for a little bit, or here, I have the iPad, let me grab it for you. You might also look into some of the remote accesses, that there's different parent apps that you can have the timers come on of, well, let me turn that timer on for you for a couple hours right now, so that you're the one providing access to the iPad rather than that free access that Jen spoke about. So he's currently on technology right now for 2 hours a day. And, you know, that's not really the end of the world, especially during the times that we're in right now. But what we're thinking about for Jamal is, could we change some of that 2 hour of the more recreational time and move it towards some more quality time on the iPad? So maybe we want to keep those current 2 hours of YouTube, or of technology, sorry, but we want to move it to some more quality time. And so what are we going to do? How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to schedule social time with his friends online, because we already know that he loves to socialize with his friends, and he's likely not socializing with them at the same rate that they were before when they were at school full time. So we can schedule in some of those times. And he also loves soccer, so let's continue that soccer club in the evening for him to keep him doing some other preferred activities and giving him some things to talk about on those social times with his friends. So if you were looking at video 2, the first question is, what's going well? So for them, mom is home during the day and she's following a daily schedule. So he's got lots of really great preferred activities going on throughout the day. So his tech time is a little bit less than if he was able to kind of access it free all day. But what's not going well for him is the limited social exposure to his friends, both online and in person. So he's currently not having any online time with his friends, and he's having very little in-person time with his friends. So that socialization is really going down for Jamal. So we're looking to try to increase that quality time on the tech and use that socialization motivation that he has to see if we can change it that way. So if you were going to pick a goal as a family, it might be that Jamal has 1 hour of social time with his friends before having access to YouTube for the other hour of the 2 hours. So you can see the difference. For Declan, we were trying to reduce the amount of time in general that he was using tech, as well as reduce the problem behavior of giving it up. With Jamal, it's a different situation, because we're not actually trying to reduce that, and he's not having problems giving it up, but what we are trying to do is trying to change what he is doing while he's on there for the period of time that he's on. So for video 3, the first question is, what areas of our daily schedule are working well? So the family is following a really great routine. They've included lots of preferred activities in the routine, and they even have some outdoor time and some reading and some other academic activities going on during the day. But how could they build some consistency into the family routine? So if we wanted to make sure that he was doing some social time with his friends, we'd have to schedule those in. So the recommendation would would be to schedule daily online meetings with his friends via talking to their parents or talking to the friends, and making sure that you have a scheduled time to actually do that, rather than, oh, Jamal, it's time to find a friend to talk to, and that friend might not be available right now. So actually scheduling them in consistently for the week will guarantee that we actually have that time with the peer, rather than kind of spending an hour looking for a peer to talk to and they might not be available during that time. And how would I communicate that with Jamal? I would simply put it on a calendar for him. So if you could find him a fun calendar with some of the things that he does during the week, so soccer club, maybe going to grandma's on the weekend, but then on the different calendar days, you know, meeting with Jen at 2 o'clock, meeting with Marilyn at 3 o'clock, so that he can remember each day which friend he gets to talk to, and actually start to look forward to talking to different friends during the week. So for video number 4, setting the stage for success, what skills does he have that are currently going to help you work towards that goal? So we know that he's familiar with Zoom and Google Meetings from his classrooms, and he can do them independently. So that's already a goal. We don't have to actually teach him those skills. We just need to get him in an environment where he can actually use those skills. So a baby step that we might work on is start by a 15-minute Zoom call a day with a family or friend. So call grandma, call your extended aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, get him online and engaging with someone at a short period of time, 15 minutes a day. And how can you implement that one step and then reinforce it is, because we're okay with that 2 hours of tech time, we would start by saying, hey, let's call grandma for 15 minutes, tell her about soccer practice last night, and then you know what, you can have YouTube for the rest of that time. So for the rest of the 2 hours, he can go ahead and play on his YouTube. Because we were okay with the amount of time, we're just trying to change what the thing he's doing online is. So when we're wrapping it all up for Jamal, you can see how it's a really different situation from Declan, who was having some severe problem behavior when he was giving up that iPad. For Jamal, we don't have that situation. Jamal is kind of that kiddo he's okay with giving it up, but he does want his time a day, and whether it's, you know, after the whole day planned with mom that he gets some iPad time, or maybe siblings are doing something with parents and that's when he gets his iPad time, parents are okay with that, and that's fine. So what they wanted to do though was make sure that when he was on tech, that he was able to do something that was a little bit more quality time, and they were concerned about those social skills. So what we would do to start is have a 15-minute Zoom call with a family or friend scheduled every day. And then once he finishes, allow him to sign into YouTube immediately and be the giver of that. It's time to go on YouTube now, so we are the ones rewarding him with that. If he can do that for 5 days straight, and you're gonna see that this is likely not gonna be a really hard goal for Jamal. He's really already socially motivated, and he's already identified that he's lacking that time with his friends. Then you can start to increase it. Every week you can go up for 15 minutes, and then what you can start to do is break it into multiple times, because we know an hour with a 9-year-old, that might happen, but it might not happen. So what you might want to do is break it into a 30-minute call and a 15-minute call, or 2 30-minute calls eventually. And what you might see naturally happening is that 15-minute call that you had scheduled actually turns into 20 or 25 minutes if you've got something really great to talk about. So you want to help load the conversations with things he can talk to his friends about or to grandma about. Can you set up a game? I know my daughters right now are really interested in Zoom calling their friends in coloring, and they just sit there quietly most of the time. They color a picture and then they show each other the picture, and they want to talk about the picture for 10 minutes. So what you want to do is try to load those calls with something fun to do, because just finding conversation can be difficult for that amount of time. And for him, those antecedent strategies, so those things that we're going to try to do to make sure that he's maintaining his current schedule and getting some extra quality time, is mark those on a calendar so that he looks forward to who he's going to talk to. Maybe he doesn't get to talk to his best friend till Thursday. So that's really exciting that, oh, on Thursday I get to talk to, you know, Johnny or Joey or whoever it is. And then what you want to do is continue to schedule those preferred activities that he's doing right now. So can we go for a walk and collect some rocks? When is soccer club? Put those on his calendar too. Can we arrange any in-person play dates with his friends, so that when he's in these Zoom calls, he actually has something to talk to them about. Show them your rocks, talk about soccer game and how it went, and talk about how your play dates went, so that he has lots of things to do to continue, that his tech time doesn't actually go up, that it maintains at the level that he's currently at. So again, I invite you to write any questions if you have any about Jamal. So what we were really trying to do was give you kind of a picture of one student might be having some problem giving up the technology. One might just be not really sure what to do or having any quality time with the technology. And then next Jen's going to talk to you about Isla, who has a lot more tech time, and parents are looking at reducing a much higher amount of time. And just a reminder before we go into Isla, we're not giving you any formal rules for how much tech time is too much and how much isn't at this point, because we're in a very unprecedented time. Whichever goal you choose is your goal for your family, and it can't be compared to any other family situation right now. So if Jamal's goal was 2 hours, that's great. And if Declan's goal was 5 hours and eventually reducing it, that's great too. So don't focus so much on what your specific goal is right now when you're listening to this, but focus on the strategies that you can use to get to that goal. I think we're good, Jen. You're good to go.
Thank you. So the next one is Isla, who is 14 years old, and she is a gamer extraordinaire. So I really like Isla already because she's a teenager with a big gaming problem. So we have a lot of those floating around, and she's giving us the thumbs up right now because she can't wait to find out all the wonderful things we're going to add to her life to expand her interest beyond the specific games. Okay, so video 1 in the ABA in Your Home series talked about holding the key. So what are the other favorites of Isla? She likes watching TV, she likes reading, she loves raspberries, and she likes swimming. So okay, we can work with this. And if you're someone who is struggling with trying to figure out what your child's other favorite things are, try to think about times during the day when, you know, gaming isn't happening. Well, what else are they doing? Well, oh, she has a show that she likes to watch. Sometimes she reads a specific magazine or a specific book. Okay, so that gives us some indication at first, even if they're not chomping at the bit to read or chomping at the bit to watch TV all day. Anything that sort of does well as a backup option are good things that we can start recording down as ideas. So withholding top reinforcers. So for the computer, remember, we don't want to just pull the plug on the computer and say, sorry, Isla, we've had enough. You're spending too much time on the computer. What we want to do is say, set some small time limits on her technology that auto control based on current data. What I mean by that is, if Isla's currently spending 8 hours per day gaming, which you think is a very long time and you want to reduce that, then what we want you to do for a few days is track a little bit of data. When is she typically gaming? Is it from 8 a.m. to a certain time, and then she breaks for lunch, and then she gets back on in the afternoon? Is she doing some gaming in the evening? And maybe we just reduce that time period by maybe 10, 15, 30 minutes and just put it auto reduced into the computer. So let's say every morning Isla wakes up bright and shiny at 8 o'clock, comes down for breakfast, and then logs into her game. Maybe if she's typically logged into her game at 8:30, you just put a time control on there for 8:15. It sounds like such a tiny change, but again, we're reducing her time on that game by small amounts, not big amounts. We don't want to evoke problem behavior here. And if there wasn't any before, we're certainly going to create some if we start saying 2 hours a day on that game is all you get. So we want to be more systematic when we're talking about using ABA for this. So changing the Wi-Fi password daily and giving the password each morning instead of free access. So remember, we don't want to say we're changing the Wi-Fi password daily and first you have to do A, B, C to get access to the password. We don't want to do that to start. What we want to do to start is say, guess what, sweetheart? We're changing the we're changing the Wi-Fi password every day. Don't stress about that. We're going to give it to you for free as soon as you wake up in the morning. It's not contingent on anything. What that does is it establishes, again, a little bit of that instructional control that you as the parent are the giver of that good thing. And at first, we're not limiting that or putting any contingencies on it. At first, we're just saying, here's the Wi-Fi password, no problem. We have to reduce the adult expectation. So right away, we know that 8 hours per day is what Isla has creeped up to in her gaming during these times. We're going to schedule as many preferred activities as possible through her day to try to compete with her desire to game. How we do that is we start with 1 or 2 activities and then we build over time, because remember, we're building slowly on this. And that will naturally reduce the amount of time she's spending gaming because she simply just has so much else in her day to do. So the second video was pick what fits. So Isla goes swimming daily at her swimming lessons, which is great. That's going really, really well. What isn't going well is parents are reporting they're both working full-time from home. They have limited time to oversee her, and they really are relying on her to kind of keep herself busy during the day. And that's ending up she's in her bedroom all day and she's gaming. So what's the goal we're going to pick for this family? In collaboration with them, we've come up with Isla will spend no more than 3 hours on the computer per day before school starts in September. So that's our eventual goal. So sometimes we set baby goals now to build toward the eventual goal. So we know this is really important for parents. Parents are saying when she goes back to school in September, we want her no more than 3 hours. And we want to try to reduce that slowly. So we can help them with that. So the third video was scheduling for success. So what areas in the daily schedule are working very well right now? Well, the family eats all their meals together, and Isla does that very cooperatively. And she also goes to bed around 9 o'clock, which is pretty amazing for a 14-year-old, I would say. So these are going really well, and it's always important when we're going through the ABA process to celebrate not only other preferences and skill sets, but what's working really well right now, because we want to make sure that we're holding on to that and we're not inadvertently making other plans that might jeopardize the things that are going well. So how can we build in more structure and consistency? So because one of her other preferences is watching TV, we're going to start watching a series as a family. So gulp, because it might not be a series that's your first choice, but that's okay. If it's Isla's first choice, then we're going to say it's okay. We're going to build that into family time instead of Isla's second preference being TV alone. Maybe if we're watching those episodes together, we can do that. So if parents are really busy, maybe they can squeeze in an episode at lunchtime or right after lunchtime. And maybe that's the best time of day they've decided to be able to account for that. So we want her to do some reading in the morning, and it's okay that we buy. Remember when we talk about the Minecraft? So sometimes we want recreational time to be used as quality time. So instead of different technology, so we'd rather have her watching a favorite TV show than gaming. That's okay. Other times we want to take her preferences like gaming and buy her a magazine subscription to Gamers R Us or some kind of magazine subscription. And that's what she can read. It doesn't have to be a big thick novel that you would want her to read. It can just be, I just want you reading and doing something else that aligns with your preferences for 1 hour in the morning. And we would always recommend trying to find as much as possible that are her preferences that she can do outside of her bedroom. Okay, because we know when she's in her bedroom, her preference is to game. So come sit beside me. I have my computer out because I'm doing work right now. But when you're beside me, you can read your gaming and just like let me know if something really cool is happening in that magazine, because you know sharing that interest with her is going to help her reciprocate that. And then maybe she's going to help prepare dinner daily. Okay, so maybe that can start very small. Hey, sweetie, can you take the veggies out of the fridge before you go upstairs to finish your game? And that's where it starts. And then eventually it's, can you take the veggies out and just chop them up real quick? That would be super helpful. And again, because the gaming is coming immediately after that, then she's more likely to cooperate with you, slipping small, tiny things like that in. So how can you communicate this with your child? So because Isla is 14, and she can read, we're going to just write it out on a daily schedule. Okay, so from 9 to 10, I want you to read that new subscription that I got you. From 12 to 12:30, Dad's available, and you guys are going to watch a quick episode. You can pick the show. I mean, and we can just do that together. Okay, so from video 4, the main questions that we pulled were about setting the stage for success. So what skills does my child have that might help us build? So she has above average level in reading, which is great, and prolonged attention to tasks, right? Because she's a gamer. So she can really pay attention for long periods of time. So those are great skills that we want to celebrate with Isla. And what baby steps might we focus on together as a family? So we're going to schedule the 30 minutes of TV time, and we're going to schedule the 1 hour of reading time / flipping through the magazine, right? And the more choice she has in what that reading material is, the better. How can I implement those small things? So we're going to talk about those things with her. Certainly in any case, when we're talking about a family goal or the steps we're going to take, we want to share that information and collaborate directly with the child about that so that it's not all a surprise to them. So putting it all together with Isla, we know that the goal is for her to spend no more than 3 hours. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to build in 1 hour of reading. We're going to watch a TV show together, either during lunch or right after lunch. That already, because we're building in other preferred activities, is going to cut down the natural time she's contacting gaming. Does that make sense? So at first, we're going to introduce those 2 new activities. And when you have 5 days of success where you're like, you know what, she's reading in the morning and she's doing a great job, then we're going to expand it. We're going to add one more thing to her schedule, and we're going to add one more thing 5 days later to her schedule. So we're slowly adding things to her schedule, and they don't have to be big things. So I put some examples here. She can, go further to help prepare dinner daily. She can make raspberry smoothies. Remember, she loves raspberries. We can say something like, hey, do you want to whip up some smoothies? I've got some raspberries in the fridge. Even if that takes her 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes that delays her gaming time, okay? And she's more likely going to do it if it's a highly preferred task. So lifeguard training, maybe it's a job prep. Hey, did you want to, eventually look at that? Well, what is required? Let's take a look together and see what kind of training you could do. That's usually very motivating to a teenager because there's money tied to getting a job, right? And so if we want to, again, tie their reinforcers, their high reinforcers to what we're expecting of them, that works well. And eventually you could tie some chores to an allowance or a gaming gift card. So again, you're more likely going to take more time away from tech if you say, hey, I just need you to vacuum the floor, and you're going to earn $5 toward a gaming gift card. And every Friday, maybe we calculate how much you've earned, and you get that as a gaming gift card. So you could go big or small with that type of thing, obviously. So with Isla and Jamal and Declan, we had 3 kiddos that we really needed to either reduce and or remove technology in their lives. And we had to make it very specific depending on their interests, what's going well, what wasn't going well, what goals really made sense for the family. And use some evidence-based strategies that are ABA-based strategies that really focus on taking a small goal and building one step at a time toward a bigger goal. And the goal is always to do this in slow incremental steps, but it's also the goal to do this without challenging behavior. We want to take these kids slowly through this process because it's going to go more smoothly for everybody. If we don't just pull the plug, so to speak.
Little pun there. All right, so here's a quick summary of our steps. So if you were to go home and say, I'm going to try this myself, we would first recommend that you do the ABA in your home so that you have all this kind of underlying information that you're going to need. And so one of the first steps is going to be choose an end goal. So this is your end goal. So I would like my child to be on tech 1 hour a day. Sure, that's your end goal. Great idea. But what we're going to do then is break it into those mini steps. So if they're currently on for 4, 5, or more hours a day, we're not going to say our goal is 1 hour right now. How can we reduce that even by 5 or 10 minutes a day until we get to the point that we're at? And that's how we're going to be successful. Next, how can we withhold that reinforcement? So those were the ideas we gave you about changing the Wi-Fi password, changing where we kind of store the iPad. How can we put some parental controls on that we're responsible for them having and not having tech? How can we set up the environment? So what can we put into their daily schedule based on your own schedule and what you can actually do throughout the day that can get them some access to things that are not tech related, right? So those were the soccer clubs, the swimming, the Zoom calls with his grandparents, different things that they can be doing throughout the day that are not actually tech activities, but that also you can commit to because we understand that everybody's schedule looks so incredibly different at this point. Next, we're going to teach those steps. So we're going to talk to them. This is what we would need from you, and then we're going to reinforce it. So the reinforcement right now is pretty easy because it's you do this quite simple thing for me, and then you get your tech back, right? So we don't need to go outside and think of all these external reinforcers. The reinforcer is you're off of it for a little tiny bit of time, and then guess what? Now it's tech and you get it to keep it for now. And then what you're going to do is continue this over and over until you get to your end goal. So if we've reduced it by 10 minutes, how can we reduce it by 10 more? And then how can we reduce it by 10 more until eventually we're at a point where we're either willing to maintain where we're at or we've kind of hit our end goal for there. So what you're going to see is this repeating itself over and over. And if you have time to look at the videos again later, you're going to see that this is how we broke down all of the individual strategies for our 3 profiles. So some words of caution when you are dealing with any change in behavior. What we want to say is, please try these things, but if they're not working for you, it's a good idea to look at seeking some external BCBA support. So a behavior analyst to help you through this process, because it, depending on how long the behavior has been occurring and how much you want to change, it's not always as easy as it seems. If your child is having severe challenging behavior immediately or right now, or becomes severe, we do, again, please seek some external behavior analytic support during the process so that everybody's safe and so that everybody can come to a goal together. It's up to you how far you go in your goals. So we realize that every goal is different, so try to respect your own limits. If you are working full-time during the day, it might not be your current goal to have your student or your child off the tech all day, and that's okay. So if your goal is to reduce it by 30 minutes right now, that's a great goal. Respect your own goal and know your limits of what you can actually achieve based on what else is happening in your life right now. And each goal is individualized. So not every goal for every family will look the same. In fact, it would be incredibly rare to see 2 that were exactly the same. So what you want to do is make sure that you choose a goal that's right for you and your family, and you stick to that goal. And you can choose where you maintain that goal, or if you want to increase it in the future. So maybe right now your goal is to reduce technology by an hour, but you know maybe in a year and a couple months when this is different, that you actually want to reduce it by 3 hours. That's great. Right now, start with the half hour, start with the hour, and then know that you can always increase your goal later. It's never too late. So just start where you are, and that will help you be successful. All right, so I guess we hit our time. Thank you so much for attending. And again, what we're going to do right now is we're going to say our quick goodbye, and then we will stay on after to answer any questions that you guys might have. So thank you so much for coming.